today we are jumping into one of the most incredible stories of the 20th century, India's long road to freedom. Now, this wasn't just a single event or one big battle. We're talking about a multi-generational, complex struggle for liberty that truly changed the map of the world. So, let's get into how it all went down. So, let me ask you a question right at the start. How do you think a nation actually wins its freedom? Is it about sitting at a table and negotiating? Or is it about flooding the streets with protesters? Or do you have to take up arms and fight? Well, in the case of India, the answer is kind of fascinating. It was all of the above, often happening all at the same time. All right, here's our game plan. We'll start with the big picture, then zoom in on the very first spark of rebellion. We'll see how the movement got organized, explore the two massive competing ideas of nonviolence and revolution, and finally, we'll get to freedom and the heartbreaking price that came with it. Okay, first things first. It is so important to get this. The fight for Indian independence wasn't a quick sprint. It was a marathon. We're talking nearly a century of struggle, and over that time, the strategies, the leaders, and the goals, they all evolved and changed. You can really break down this long journey into a few key phases. It kicks off with a massive, violent spark in 1857. That spark then leads to a political awakening around 1885. From there, things explode into an era of mass action starting in the 1920s, which all leads up to the finish line in 1947. Freedom, but also a deep fracture. So let's rewind all the way back to that first spark. The year is 1857. Now, the first major, widespread uprising against the British didn't come from politicians. It didn't come from intellectuals. It came from inside the British Empire's own army. And the trigger for this massive rebellion, you might be surprised. It was rifle cartridges. You see, Indian soldiers, called sepoys, were given new cartridges that were rumored to be greased with cow and pig fat. Now, for Hindu soldiers, the cow is sacred. For Muslim soldiers, the pig is forbidden. This wasn't just an order. It was seen as a direct attack on their faith. One sepoy, Mangal Pandey, became a hero for his defiance, and from there, the mutiny just spread like wildfire. In the end, the British brutally suppressed the rebellion, but it changed everything. For one, the private British East India Company was dissolved, and India came under the direct rule of the British government, the Crown. But more importantly, it lit a fuse. For the first time, a widespread shared desire for true independence was ignited across the subcontinent. The big lesson from 1857 was pretty clear. A spontaneous, violent revolt just wasn't enough. The movement needed a plan. It needed structure. And that brings us to the next phase, where the struggle starts to get organized, strategic, and very political. So as soon as the Indian National Congress was formed, a huge debate kicked off. On one side, you had the moderates. They believed the path forward was through negotiation, petitions, and working with the British. But on the other side were the extremists. They said that was way too slow. They demanded Swaraj, which means complete self-rule, and they believed the only way to get it was through direct action and mass protest. And that idea of direct action found its first really powerful expression in a movement called Swadeshi. Triggered when the British decided to partition the state of Bengal in 1905, Swadeshi was a brilliant economic protest. The plan was simple: boycott British-made stuff and buy Indian-made goods instead. It was a way to build self-reliance and hit the British Empire where it hurt the most, its wallet. And then came a moment that was an absolute point of no return. In 1919, in the city of Amritsar, British troops fired on a peaceful, unarmed crowd of men, women, and children who were gathered in a walled garden called Jallianwala Bagh. It was a massacre. And that single, horrific event just shattered any lingering hope in British fairness or justice. For millions, this was the moment they became revolutionaries. The raw anger and outrage from that massacre really set the stage for a totally new kind of leader, Mahatma Gandhi. What he did was incredible. He took a movement that was mostly run by elites and politicians and transformed it into a genuine mass movement, bringing in millions upon millions of ordinary people from every walk of life. So, what were Gandhi's weapons? They were ideas. His core philosophy was something he called satyagraha. It literally means truth force. Now, this is not passive resistance. It's an active, powerful, and very public form of nonviolent defiance. The whole point is to challenge injustice so directly and morally that you expose the brutality of your oppressor for the whole world to see. And Gandhi put this philosophy into practice with 3 huge escalating campaigns. First, the non-cooperation movement, where Indians just stopped participating in British institutions, courts, schools, you name it. Then, a decade later, the famous Salt March. It was a genius piece of political theater, a protest against a simple salt tax that got global attention. And finally, in 1942, the Quit India movement, the final unambiguous call for the British to just pack up and leave immediately. By the time of the Quit India movement, the mood had shifted, and Gandhi, the man of peace, delivered a message that was incredibly stark and urgent. His call to the nation was simply, do or die. This wasn't a call to arms, it was a call to ultimate resolve, a declaration that they would either achieve freedom or die trying. The time for gradual steps was officially over. But here's the thing, Gandhi's path, as powerful as it was, wasn't the only one. There was another stream of the freedom struggle running right alongside it, a path for those who believed that freedom would never be given, it had to be taken by force. This was the path of the revolutionaries, and 2 figures really stand out here. First, there's Bhagat Singh. His bold revolutionary acts and his ultimate sacrifice at a young age absolutely electrified the youth of India. Then you have Subhash Chandra Bose, who took the fight global. He literally escaped from India, raised an army called the Azadi Hind Fauj to fight the British from the outside, and gave the nation one of its most famous rallying cries, Jai Hind, or Victory to India. So after decades of nonviolent protest, revolutionary action, and with a Britain completely exhausted from World War II, the end of the empire in India was finally here. But the victory, it was going to be incredibly bittersweet. 1947. That was the year that this nearly 100-year-long struggle finally reached its destination. So yes, freedom was won, but it came at a staggering cost. The final British act was to partition the subcontinent, carving it up into 2 new nations, India and Pakistan, largely along religious lines. It sparked one of the largest, most violent mass migrations in all of human history. A true tragedy. And so, on August 15th, 1947, India finally became an independent nation, with Jawaharlal Nehru as its very first prime minister. Looking back, you can see the freedom struggle wasn't just one story. It was a complex tapestry, woven together with threads of incredible sacrifice, powerful nonviolent resistance, and fiery revolutionary action. Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. India was born from these 2 powerful and, let's be honest, conflicting ideals, the nonviolence of Gandhi and the armed struggle of the revolutionaries. How does a nation built on both of those legacies continue to shape its identity in the world today? Now that is a question worth pondering.